This is the morning of May 5th, and we're out here at the Flight Test Museum ribbon cutting. And this is the structure that's going up right outside the front gate to Edwards Air Force Base. This is a all metal building, as you can see, and set to house planes like these that have been outside on display for many years.
What time is it? Too early? I'll wait another minute. 3 minutes till? Oh, I'm late. One of your meetings.
I'll get one.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome. I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is that the weather's going to be beautiful next week. And the bad news is not today.
It's okay.
But we were setting this up yesterday, and this is really a typical gorgeous day. Yesterday it was windier and colder. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to brave the weather and come out here, because this is a celebration, Cinco de Mayo. We're celebrating our progress today. An awful lot of effort has gone into getting to where we are today, and if you look around, I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And when you see 3 years from now, when you're all back here, this day, 3 years from today, put it on your calendar when we have our grand opening ribbon cutting. You'll see several dozen aircraft inside here, and several larger of our cargo and bomber aircraft on the east side of here, parked, just waiting for you to admire them. And we also will have a tremendous STEM program in our classrooms. So what you're looking at is just about halfway in terms of construction. We've spent about 1/3 of the budget so far to this point. And when we get through it, this will be about a $15-16 million facility that's free to the public. It is completely operated, filled by the United States Air Force. It'll be manned, all their historic aircraft that are all over this base, and the hundreds of thousands of artifacts. But what I'm proud about being a part of this is that the Flight Test Museum is emphasizing STEM in everything that they do to inspire our young people in the future generations in science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's something our nation needs. At this time, I would like to introduce our chairman of the board of the Flight Test Museum Foundation, Art Thompson, for a few words.
Thanks, Rex.
Gone with the wind. I got it. Sorry.
So I do want to say, in the infamous words of Al Hoffman, imagine how warm you would be if we had walls for our community and our base. The mission of the Flight Test Historical Foundation and the Flight Test Museum is really about preserving the heritage and the history of not only the beautiful aircraft hardware, but also of the people of SCTP, the flight test organizations, the technicians, the scientists, the people who really created our community, who really contributed to make us the leading edge of aerospace. This is the center of the aerospace universe, Aerospace Valley. And what it's really about is supporting STEM education, developing our STEM education programs. For Starbase, we've got dedicated classrooms, the SET Bob Hoover library, which is going to be here, which will be fantastic access for students from all over. It's a community center, communication center, and the idea is that this becomes, outside of the gate since 9/11 now, having it outside the gate makes it accessible for people globally. And that's going to have a huge effect on all of our communities surrounding the area. As far as bringing in tourists, as far as supporting the hotels, as far as supporting restaurants, it brings money to the communities, but it also supports all the education. School systems are based on the number of students. The base has a very small student base, but we've got some of the most brilliant minds with the Flight Test School, with SETP, with all the different corporations that do work here on the base, with NASA. And so by being able to bring those minds here to give lectures, it not only is inspirational for the students that supports the school system, not only here on base, but all the surrounding school systems and school systems around the nation. Universities, grammar schools, it doesn't matter. They come here, they learn, and they're inspired by the people who they look up to. They think about how can they become that person. They become the intern for the corporate entities that are here talking about what they're providing. So it becomes a communication center. It's not just a museum. That's what's important for the community, because it's going to support all the surrounding areas as well, to support all the infrastructure and support all the businesses in the area. So this symbolizes more than just a museum. It's really about the community. It's about our future and inspiring the next generation. This building is a 75,000 foot structure. It's kind of the base of our start. Unfortunately, with COVID, the cost of building the structure just for the exterior went up $1 million. And so we're making a statement here by saying we're moving forward, we're continuing on, because we believe in what we're doing, which is the future. It's about supporting education, it's about supporting our community and the flight test, and really getting the word out. I want to thank everybody here for being here today and bearing the cold, and we're going to have some people come up and give talks about their involvement and what we're creating here for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Love you, man. The next speaker is going to give a few short remarks. I twisted her arm. Kathy McLaren is the president of the Antelope Valley Economic Development and Growth Enterprise, but she's also Los Angeles County representative for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And being a former member of IBEW, it was a great pleasure to get to meet her, and I'd like to call Kathy McLaren at this time to come forward.
Hello, everybody. I can just tell you that from when my kids grew up, I was the mom that always wanted to go on the field trips and do the things with them, and so I got to take them to the Test Flight Museum, the very small one compared to what this beautiful, enormous thing is. And what I always remember is you never know what's going to inspire somebody to make the life choice or career choice that they're going to turn out and do. So that's why we have to have these things to honor our history, remember, show the technology. I mean, they are seeing things that they'll only see in movies. And when you watch those movies, you can say, look, there's where we went at our Test Flight Museum. I am so proud to be working with the AV Edge, because the economic development of something like this will just bring tons of people to our area and our region, and that's what we're all about. We don't sing our tune good enough, because when people come out here and they really realize what we have out here in the Antelope Valley, they just cannot believe it, because we have some of the brilliant minds here. We have so much rich history, and we have so much opportunity to open up our youth's eyes to many, many opportunities. STEM education is so important, because without science, look what we just went through with COVID. Thank God we have people that were interested in science so they could understand it. Technology. Think of all the amazing technology. When we were young, we didn't have cell phones or any of those things. Engineering. Engineers come up with the greatest ideas for problems to make buildings and wonderful things like that. And math is very important. In our line of work, if you want to be an electrician, you have to have a C or better in algebra. So it's important to know math because you have to be able to calculate to make the right decisions when you're building. So as a friend, the IBEW is going to be a lifelong friend, and I'm going to be out there telling all of our friends, neighbors, that this is for us in our community to build for our future generations. And we need everybody's support to do that, but what it'll bring to our region will be tenfold. So thank you, and let's get this built. I want to be here in 3 years celebrating that.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Our next speaker is Jim Brown. He's president of the National Test Pilot School, but he also was the chief test pilot of the F-22 here at Edwards, and also a graduate of the Test Pilot School. So, Jim, if you would please come up for remarks.
Thank you. I had a Diet Coke can there to use as a paperweight, but we'll see how this works. Hi, I'm from the National Test Pilot School in Mojave, California. As a employee of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, I was lucky enough to fly the F-117 and F-22 as their chief test pilot, and as Rex said, a graduate of the Air Force Test Pilot School just down the road. I've been lucky enough to fly above 70,000 feet, see the darkness of space and the curvature of the Earth. I've flown at 2.2 times the speed of sound and seen my shockwave streak across the desert floor. I've launched missiles, dropped bombs, shot a cannon at 100 bullets a second, and even flown airplanes backwards. In 1675, Isaac Newton wrote, "If I have seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants." How arrogant would I be? How arrogant would we all be if we did not take the time to recognize those giants that have come before us? To remember, honor, and acknowledge the hard work and dedication of those who have paved the way to allow the incredible seem almost routine. Giants. That's the purpose of this museum. As you walk into the base chapel number 1, the memorial chapel, located right near the Test Pilot School, you're met with a wall holding a multitude of names of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice pursuing this endeavor. That's why we're here. Giants. As I grew up making models of the XB-70, the X-15, the B-58, all those planes with pointy noses, and then growing up and entering a career in the U.S. Air Force, Edwards Air Force Base was a place of mysticism. The great aeronautical achievements that have enabled the U.S. to maintain dominance of the skies were accomplished right here at Edwards Air Force Base. Think about this. The last American wounded by enemy air action was April 15th, 1953. Almost exactly 70 years ago. Page change. Milestones such as the first jet aircraft, the XP-59 with Bob Stanley, the first successful flight faster than Mach 1 with Chuck Yeager in glamorous Glennis, the Bell X-1. Mach 2 with Scott Crossfield in the D-5582 Skyrocket. And Mach 3 with Mel Abt in the Bell X-2. Giants. The X-15 became the first winged vehicle into space and also set the speed record, achieving Mach 6.7. Ladies and gentlemen, look up at this sky. Look up there. It all happened right here. And let's not concentrate solely on the pilots, but remember the countless numbers of engineers, technicians, and support personnel that made this all happen. There have been a lot of sweaty brows, greasy hands, and bloody knuckles. Giants. The Air Force Test Pilot School has been the breeding ground for test pilots since its inception in Wright Field and since 1951 right here at Edwards Air Force Base. It not only feeds test pilots to the U.S. Air Force and our allies, but officers in the highest levels of military and industry leadership. Air Force Test Pilot School has recently added a space test curriculum for the guardians of the U.S. Space Force who are entrusted with maintaining our dominance in the high ground of space. As we look into the future, Edwards Air Force Base will continue to be the leading edge of U.S. aeronautical and space technology. The newest Air Force bomber, the B-21 Raider, will soon take to these very same skies. The upgrades, developments of systems for our existing fleet will be developed here. Systems designed to enforce U.S. national policy, but more importantly, to take care of that scared, post-adrenaline rush fatigued lieutenant pilot on the proverbial dark and stormy night to bring him or her home safely. As today's event concludes, please take a minute and understand why we are here, to acknowledge those giants whose shoulders upon which we have stood. Please do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JB. Mr. Jim Brown. I have to tell a story. When he was flying the F-22, I was working for Murray Walker at the Mojave Airport, and for a couple of years. It was between working for Senator Pete Knight and Senator Roy Ashburn. And one day JB called Murray and says, "Hey, we need to do some crosswind takeoff and landings, and we don't have it here at Edwards, so we'll see you at Mojave in a little bit." So we're all lined up there watching JB doing crosswind landings in the F-22. But what was so memorable to me, I can remember like it was yesterday, beautiful touchdowns on the crosswind, heavy crosswinds in Mojave that day, great for testing. And what was amazing to me is he did his crosswind, and then he did downwind. And when he went downwind, he went balls out, and the two F-16s, one on each side of him, were left way in the dust. And I think he did it on purpose just to impress, didn't you, JB? Anyway, great memories. Thank you for your service to our country. Our next speaker is from the Society of Experimental Test Pilots, and I'd like to have Brian Sandberg come up here and tell us a little bit about their participation. Brian?
Thank you, Rex. And thank you to the entire Museum Foundation for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I am Brian Sandberg, and I am here representing the Society of Experimental Test Pilots Foundation. While I am the president of SETP, it's important to note that the foundation, the SETP Foundation, is an entirely separate legal organization, a 501c3 charitable, that runs in parallel with SETP. Our foundation's building, historical, and education committees formed this relationship with the Museum Foundation in 2016, and we are grateful for this progress that we see so far. The Society of Experimental Test Pilots was rapidly formed in the fall of 1955 in an era of advancements and mishaps well recorded in tales like Tom Wolfe's The Right Stuff. The daredevil cowboy persona of a test pilot has persisted in popular culture ever since, right up to recent superhero movies and last summer's Top Gun Maverick, where not only did he fly without permission, he exceeded the planned test point and then pushed a little farther to the eventual destruction of the Dark Star test article. This makes for great entertainment, right? But the persona, the actual reality of a professional test pilot in the modern era is an entirely different person. This highlights why the Robert A. Hoover Library and Education Center will be such a vital contribution to this museum. This is the chance to tell the story of detailed planning, disciplined execution, and technical reporting that defines modern flight test. This, after all, is a primary purpose of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots. Quoting directly from our Constitution, to promote education of members, of those directly associated with aeronautical activities, and of the general public concerning those endeavors peculiar to the profession of the experimental test pilot. It's beautiful prose. Those guys were good writers in the 1950s. SETP was created right here in the Antelope Valley by local test pilots who wanted to break from the old guard and bring new levels of professionalism, efficiency, and safety to their field. The first meetings were in Lancaster, Rosemont, and Quartz Hill. Our headquarters has always been in Palmdale, Edwards, or Lancaster. Telling the story of SETP in a local museum of this scale is perfectly symbiotic. While SETP represents all services, nations, and civil industry, a flagship library and education center within this museum at Edwards is entirely appropriate. Flight testing began here in late 1942 with National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, U.S. Navy Bureau of Aeronautics, British Royal Air Force, U.S. Army Air Forces, Bell Aircraft Corporation, and General Electric representatives working together on the XP-59, America's first jet aircraft. So from the very start, test activities were joint and multinational. Army testing continued after the Air Force was created in 1947, particularly with helicopters. Navy and Marine Corps pilots set records in these skies throughout the 1960s. Space Shuttle Enterprise in the 1970s proved the landing profile, and every subsequent shuttle that returned from space got a couple of landings here at Edwards on these runways. In 1986, civilian pilots flew the Rutan Voyager around the world right from here. Still today, foreign aviators come to the Antelope Valley and the surrounding regions to study, flight test, and to test the latest and greatest aircraft and their systems. This is truly the world's flight test center, and the perfect place for this museum and the SETP library. Finally, I have a challenge for the Society of Experimental Test Pilots Foundation and to the SETP members to increase our contribution to this museum and the library beyond the $250,000 already pledged so we can finish this task in 3 years, as we heard today. SETP will mark its 75th anniversary in 2030. That's just enough time. Therefore, it's time to bolster our foundations, finish the Bob Hoover Library, and prepare appropriate celebrations. As this museum is being completed, we'll move our inventory of documents and artifacts into archival storage for eventual display. Hopefully, physically touching our history will inspire current testers to share it, and thus inspire the next generation of testers. Thank you again for all of your supports of the Flight Test Museum Foundation. Even your small contributions add up to help finish this mutual goal.
Our next speaker is the curator of the Flight Test Museum, and that's George Welsh, who is curator of the United States Air Force Flight Test Museum. And after we get this built for him and turn it over to him, he'll be running it. And if you haven't been to his existing museum that we built, our foundation built 20-some years ago, you have to see it. George.
Thank you, Rex. And thank you all for being here. This is an interesting time here with this wind. It reminds me I need a haircut. Oh my gosh. So I am the curator, but also director of the Air Force Flight Test Museum. A little background about the museum. It was built here 25 years ago with the foundation. The way it works, folks, if those of you don't understand how the system works here, the Air Force mandates, there is a law that says these buildings have to be built with private funds. That's the way it is. Once the building is complete, the museum's operational, it is deeded to the Air Force. It goes all the way up to the Secretary of the Air Force, who promises to keep it an Air Force museum. And we are here as a field museum, as we call it. We are here because Edwards Air Force Base and their leadership wants us here. We are about Edwards. There are other bases that had museums where the bases decided, no, we don't want a museum anymore. We have become a part of the mission here of Edwards, and we're very proud of that. My staff, very professional staff, one thing you will find from them is enthusiasm, an amazing amount of enthusiasm for what we do. I want to hit on a couple of things. The museum collection currently numbers 90 aircraft. Now, there's always a situation where some of the aircraft don't really apply to Edwards. We're thinning those out. Those will be traded off to other museums. But those aircraft that we have, which currently number over 75 actual airframes, these airframes have history here. That's what makes this collection so unique. It's not just a type of plane that flew here. No, it is the actual test vehicle that was here. And that test vehicle collection, like I said, numbers well over 75. The great thing too is as we thin out the ones that don't really apply, we can bring in additional aircraft. We work deals. I got to use the proper words here. Yes, we're known as pirates. I won't even go down that road. But we work deals out with various organizations, companies, and so on. Many of the aircraft are technically on loan from the National Museum of the Air Force in Dayton, but we can work out our own deals. I have artifacts and aircraft on loan from the Navy. We have them on loan from various companies and so on. The focus is, though, flight test. Every airframe we have flew here. That's, again, what makes this collection the most unique in the world. There's nothing like it. We are the only museum dedicated to flight test. Then we start on the artifacts, which number into the thousands upon thousands of artifacts. Everything, again, is associated directly with this museum. SETP Archives and Library and Education Center, we have already received countless donations from people. When you go through your closet and you're looking at piles of tech manuals of aircraft. I've got my voice. Can you hear me? Okay. Tech support. Did I push a button? All right, while he's figuring that out, we've already processed over 400 linear feet of material that will be incorporated into this archive. We have tremendous education programs. I'm simply kind of repeating what's already been set up here. This museum will be the most unique one in the world. There's nothing like it. Oh, here we go. We're back. All right. We've already had a return on our investment. We have young engineers and interns working on this base right now, some of which have come to my office and said, hey, remember me? Because you came to my school in Arvin. Who the heck knows where Arvin is? Yeah, okay. Not a lot of people. You came to my school in Arvin and you made such an impact, I decided to pursue STEM. I'm now working here. I'm here because of you. I can't do that with my own kid at home, but I can do it with strangers out here. And we've been successful on that. And to me, that's what it's all about. We've got to get these kids inspired. We've got to get them back. That's our goal. Preserve not just the artifacts, but preserve the legacy of the people. Just talk about the people. And it isn't just, don't take it wrong, JB, it isn't just about test pilots. It's about the person pumping gas, inflating the tires. It's about the people in the tower. It's about the person who's got to get up at 3 in the morning to make breakfast for these crews before a mission. We're gonna keep all of their legacies alive here because it's so important to do so and preserve that for the future generations. So that's what we're about. I'm available if you have questions later, but some of you I know are coming on the base. We'll show you around. We've got just an amazing amount of artifacts that we have collected here. So again, I thank you all for coming out here, and we'll move on.
Thank you, George, very much. As I'm walking around and listening to these presentations, I keep looking at this magnificent facility, and I just can't get over how awesome it is, and I hope you will go away feeling the same way. Our next speaker is the Executive Director for the Antelope Valley Economic Development and Growth Enterprise, a longtime friend, Drew Mercy.
Thank you, Rex. You know, I years ago had the opportunity and pleasure of working with Rex for the late Senator Pete Knight. And one of the things in that office was legislative office, but we would get called a couple times, at least a couple times a week, from all over the country. people asking for an autograph. And we had a stack of the pictures of Pete with the X-15, and we'd mail them off to whomever was requesting. And it's a great reminder of just how inspiring everything that is done here is across the nation and the world. Edwards Air Force Base has a huge economic impact with over 10,000 employees, 2,000 of which are active duty or reserve, and an economic impact of $2.77 billion a year. That's huge for our community. Those create good mortgage-paying jobs. They inspire the youth, and again, as I said, just like those folks across the country, they want to come and see where history was made. This facility will be the keystone of aerospace tourism throughout the Antelope Valley. One of the exciting things about this effort and here today is how it's brought people from across the aerospace valley together. Obviously, we're here in beautiful Kern County, but we also have representatives from Palmdale, Lancaster, Luis Garibay with Visit Palmdale, Mark Hemstreet, Destination Lancaster. Those are the tourism bureaus. And when you combine this facility with our air parks and other aerospace tourism venues across the valley, you're going to see even more economic impact of people coming and inspiring, not just here in our community, but across the world. Edwards is the center of the aerospace efforts in Southern California, in San Bernardino County, Kern County, and Los Angeles County. These facilities are united in these efforts. One of the things I like a lot of aerospace buffs, I also enjoy science fiction. I always liked one of the Star Trek captains is said to have grown up in Mojave. And that's not a coincidence. They didn't pick that out of a hat. It's because of everything going on here. And I think those writers know it. And as they did their research, they know that those future pioneers will be inspired in the future right where we're sitting and standing. And for me, that's not just the wind giving me chills when I think about that. So thank you all for being a part of this. AV Edge is our economic development organization for Southeast Kern and North LA County, is excited to be part of this effort, and we'll be with it until we open these doors in a few short years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. Drew gave a story about where Senator William J. Pete Knight would sign autographs willingly for everybody around the United States. We actually got models of the X-15 aircraft in the mail from Japan and all over Europe, and Pete would sign, and he had in his desk a white autograph pen. He'd sign those wings of that X-15 and I'd put it back in the package and go to the post office, and the postage was always short. They sent postage with it, but Pete would dig out of his wallet and said, here's $20 to cover the balance of the postage for that, send it back. I want to tell another thing about my hero. I could take the rest of the day about talking about my hero, Pete Knight, but Pete was the kind of man that he welcomed everybody in his office. If a homeless person come in there and spend an hour with him, and he would take the time. So very humble, but he's very straight. Told everybody the same thing. So that was very unusual for a politician. This time, I want to actually recognize a couple of donations that were given and contributions. Waste Management provided this executive restroom for us today, and that's a tremendous expense and donation that they did for us. So I've been in there a couple of times because I'm an old man, but it's also very warm in there, so I extend my visit when I go in there. The other persons, our DJ today that set up the sound equipment, came out here and played mariachi music for Cinco de Mayo. It's little entertainment, let's get him if they can. And by the way, I asked him, what happened to the sound system, man? You're professional. He said it was the jet that went over. That actually is what cost it. He thinks it's what cost it to go off, because there's no other reason for it. So this time we have some presentations from elected officials, and it's my great honor to welcome a our senior elected official today, who actually is a resident of Boron, a former resident of Boron, grew up there, our Assemblyman Tom Lackey. Please, Tom.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be part of this historic moment. And because it's so cold, I'm going to be very brief, because I feel your discomfort. Trust me, I share in it. But just real briefly, I want you to know that I feel a very deep connection to Edwards Air Force Base. Back in the early 60s, when I started my life, we used to come to church on Edwards Air Force Base. And that chapel was still there. And so I have a great connection. And plus, I also have great memories of those ridiculous sonic booms. They were very, very, very routine and very powerful. I mean, they would shake your inner self. Anyway, so I have a great connection here, and it is so much an honor for me to be part of this celebration here. And I was asked to read this resolution, but because it is darn cold, I'm not going to do that. And I've learned the spirit of compromise in this new position. And so I'm going to read the first and last paragraphs. And this resolution is a bicameral presentation. It represents the acknowledgement for both the State Senate and the State Assembly and multiple members, and I'm about ready to read their names. And it states the following. It says, whereas a magnificent new Edwards Air Force Base Flight Test Museum is being built to house and protect more than 80 historical aircraft, showcase thousands of artifacts, and provide science, technology, engineering, and mathematics educational facilities. And it is appropriate to direct special public attention to this major milestone. Therefore, be it resolved by Senators Shanna Grove, Scott T. Wilk, Assembly Members Juan Carrillo, and myself, we take great pride in recognizing the positive impact the Edwards Air Force Base Flight Test Museum will have on the well-being of the state of California for many years to come, and appreciate the progress and accomplishments to date in the building of its new state-of-the-art facility. So I'm supposed to give this to somebody.
Come on this way a little bit.
Sorry, everybody. I know it's cold.
There you go.
Talk to the governor about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate that. Our next speaker is elected official Zach Scribner. Zach is a Kern County Supervisor, a close friend, and a great friend of the museum. Zach?
Thank you, Rex. It is a great honor and a privilege to get to celebrate with you today the tremendous progress on this new Flight Test Museum facility. When I first visited Edwards, I went to the museum that's on the other side of the gates, and just marveled at how wonderful the various displays are, the exhibits, but also acknowledged what a shame it was that it wasn't more accessible to folks. And that's what we're here to rectify, right? We're here to rectify that situation where, unfortunately, after 9/11 and the security protocols that were put in place have decreased the accessibility of that. And so this is going to fix that situation. Part of this is going to be a tremendous tourism boon for Kern County and for the Antelope Valley, Aerospace Valley, and that's tremendously important. But the other thing that this is going to do is this is going to help to stimulate the imaginations and the ambitions of young people throughout the region, and really even farther than that. Throughout the state, throughout the country. Anyone that visits here is going to see what is possible. We have a saying in East Kern. They say that there's a cactus curtain that separates the eastern part of the county from the western part of the county. And that's for a lot of different reasons. Just the vastness of Kern County, 8,200 square miles, makes logistically difficult for communities to kind of feel like they're a part of each other's communities. But also the media markets are different. You know, over here in the Antelope Valley, you get the LA media market, whereas, you know, out to Tehachapi is where the Bakersfield media market comes in, and then the LA market continues after that. And so you don't have a lot of cross-pollination of ideas. A lot of people don't, in Bakersfield, even though that is the county seat, don't know what is available out here in East Kern. Not just what's available to see, but what's available when it comes to places of employment, career paths. Folks in Bakersfield don't know that if they just drive a little over an hour, they can work on spaceships at the Mojave Air and Spaceport, or you can work at Edwards Air Force Base. And so that's what I think this facility is going to do as well. This is going to inspire those young people, not just from the Antelope Valley, but also from folks that live down in the Central Valley, in the Bakersfield area. And so I'm excited about it. I think that this is going to be a marvelous addition to what Kern County and the Antelope Valley has to offer. And I'm really pleased to be a part of it. And so Art, could you come up here Art, where'd Art go? Art, I want to present something to you. Mr. Thompson, thank you so much. I want to present this on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. And so this is a certificate of recognition presented to the Edwards Air Force Base Flight Museum Foundation in honor and recognition of the collaborative effort to build a new flight test museum accessible to the public and meant to inspire and educate thousands of school children about science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as the history and heritage of flight tests, and for exemplary public service and civic contributions to the community and to Kern County. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And this is signed by all 5 members of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. Sorry, take your time. I get my page before it blows away.
And how can one donate?
I'd like to answer that. This campaign that we have right now to raise $1.2 million is a campaign. It's a 5-month campaign. And this campaign is to get 1,200 new life friends. A life friend is $1,000, and you can pay it over 3 years. So already we have 20, we have 25 new life friends, so that means I only have 1,175 more to go. So, but one of those life friends contributed $15,000, so that's equivalent to another 15. So I appreciate that is the Kern County Economic Development Corporation did that. So foundation. And Lisa Brown wants to tell me something. You want to whisper in my ear? Go ahead and whisper in my ear.
Sponsorship opportunities. We have 86 aircraft, 90 aircraft that can be sponsored by individual organizations or companies. We have plaques that we can put up in order to recognize the sponsorships, but all of our aircraft need to be preserved. And so sponsorships for aircraft, for exhibits, and supporting the community, but you can also use it for marketing materials too. So just
thanks for reminding me. I pound the desk all the time about getting sponsorships for our 80 aircraft. We have about 7 right now being sponsored, and the sponsorship is 50 grand and it can accumulate. So I'm trying to get 50, I'm former president of Kiwanis Club, so I'm trying to get 50 Kiwanis Clubs, all each to become a life friend, and that 50 clubs adds to $50,000, and we'll have them sponsor one of our beautiful airplanes. So when they come into the museum, you'll see a beautiful plaque to recognize everybody that sponsors a plane, an individual plaque, and then when you go look at that beautiful F-100 up there, that F-105 right there, and you see a plaque, this plane sponsored by your organization or your family or your estate or your corporation. So we're really that's a great way to have a great legacy for your organization, and millions of people see it. And the museum care to talk about the drawing people from 100,000 and 50,000, whatever it is. I looked at the attendance for flight test museums in the world, and Smithsonian is #1, Wright-Patterson is #3 in the world. There's and I looked at the other 5, and I have the belief that we're going to be on the map in one of the top 10 flight test museums in the world in a matter of just a few years after we get it built. So that's my dream, and I hope it's your dream also. Are there any more questions? If that's no further questions, comment, question. Here we go.
The most important thing is those are the VIP bathrooms over there, so you guys know. Number 2, Rex here. This friendship campaign was conceived and executed by Rex himself, literally. 90% of the work. He developed it over a month on his own. He made the whole plan. He contacted all the clubs and all of you. So when he brings in that $1 million, 90% of the credit goes to Rex. So give him a hand.
I cater to say that. This 6-month campaign is what it is. It's the National Museum League. I formed 32 leagues, 32 teams. It's called the National Museum League, but if you look at the name of the teams, they happen to match in the 32 teams in the National Football League. So it's a pyramid organization. We're going to have 32 teams, and then we're going to have 3 farm teams, so that if you're not a member of one of those clubs, you're going to be a member of the Los Angeles Farm Team, or the San Bernardino County Farm Team, or the Kern County Farm Team. So become a member of the team by just becoming a life friend with signing our application we have available over here. I also have available on the table over here with the 2 handsome gentlemen with ties. We have brochures. They just raised their hands. There's a packet there, an envelope, that explains, it all starts here, campaign about what this is all about. So you'll be remiss if you have not picked up that envelope to see what's in there, and I happen to also stick in an application to become a life friend. But I would really like for you to see pick up that envelope. I brought 200 of them with me, thinking I only would need 150, but we will give out whatever's here. It's a great turnout, about 75 people, and that is awesome for this kind of win. Thank you very much for coming. Come back in 3 years when we're open.
PCI Productions are volunteering their time in the back. Raise your hands quick, all the videographers. Thank you so much. PCI Productions and all the press that showed up. Thank you so much. Especially all of the elected officials and their representatives.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Zach Scribner. Love you, man. Well, I did not make a script for the rest of the representatives, so you know your seniority, and if you would like to say something on behalf of your elected official, I'd like for you to maybe come up here and I'll hand you the mic and you can make the comments on behalf of yours. And then immediately right after that, we're going to have the 5 people that presented stand up here and answer questions from the press people. And I understand there are going to be a few questions. So if you would please come up here and stand and take the mic and introduce yourself and let the audience know who you're representing. I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, we are all just as much freezing as you all are. So, Mr. Thompson, if you can come back over here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm Chris Ford with Congressman Mike Garcia's office, and we really just want to say congratulations and want to honor you with this special certificate of recognition on accomplishing this milestone. So thank you so much. No problem. We look forward to coming back and opening its doors.
We look forward to it also.
All righty, great. Thank you so much. All right, great. Thank you. Here you go.
Good morning, everybody.
Why don't we all stand in front here?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Dominic Hayden. I'm here on behalf of State Senator Shannon Grove. She is on the Governor's Military Council and sends her regrets that she can't be here today in person. I'm actually fine today with the weather. We were up at Lake Isabella a couple weeks ago. Let me tell you, that was cold. It was wind about like this, but maybe 10, 15 degrees colder. And I mean, we were freezing. So I'm enjoying today, but I won't take too much of your time. I was saying to someone earlier, this is a very unique opportunity to be able to stand here at this stage in the work and to help celebrate the progress and the momentum that have already been built and to look forward to seeing it be completed. I'm not empty-handed. We've signed on with the resolution on behalf of the state legislature. I'm so pleased to be able to be here today and to help celebrate. Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for all of the work that the foundation, AV-Edge, and all the other partners have done to bring us to this point. We look forward to seeing the completion. Thank you so much.
Don't leave, we've got more for you. I'm Chuck Bostwick. I work for Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger. She represents North Los Angeles County, including the Antelope Valley, on the LA County Board of Supervisors. Her jurisdiction ends at Avenue A, so her direct support for the Flight Test Museum is limited, but on her side of the border, she's been doing what she can to help the modern aerospace industry, which she understands its importance to the Antelope Valley. She's trying to make sure that there's proper job training and expanding job training so the Plant 42 contractors have a workforce to draw from, and is helping with fund new highway projects so they have a way to get to and from their work. So for today, I brought along a certificate recognizing each of the 5 partner organizations today, and I'll hand them all to Mr. Thompson so we don't have to drag everybody else up here. But that would be for the Flight Test Museum Foundation. Sir, for you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Society of Experimental Test Pilots is the first one I handed to him. We have Edwards Civ Mill, which has been doing work for decades to help Edwards Airmen. AV-Edge, likewise, been helping Antelope Valley businesses for decades. Air and Space Forces Association, the Pete Knight chapter. And again, Flight Test Museum Foundation. He can turn these into, he can cover the walls of the building with these, so.
Paul, my belly.
Get up there.
Kathy.
And there's the airport. Come on, Civ Mill, Vice President of Civ Mill, and where's Paul? Paul's the president of the ASA. These are 4 great organizations that are making this thing happen.
Do it right here.
Okay, don't move.
This was unplanned, but it's working.
And then everybody just turn your head this way.
Okay, now we're going this way. Look over here.
1, 2. Perfect.
Okay. I think we have some more presentations. Is that it?
Yeah.
We got one more here.
One more. Awesome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Garibay. I'm here representing Mayor Laura Betancourt and the rest of the Palmdale City Council. Although we're a little bit ways away, obviously we're big supporters of what's happening out here, and obviously home of the sister property at Plant 42. It's amazing to see all the progress that's going on here. And some of you may know or may not know, last year our community was recognized as one of the 2022 Great American Defense Communities by the Association of Defense Communities. So it's a great honor. So on behalf of the council and our mayor, I'd like to present you with this commendation and a special challenge coin that we did in honor of it. So our challenge to everybody here is to help raise some money so we can put these walls up and get this museum up and running. Thank you very much.
Louis, you want to be there?
If you would look at your watches, the script says 45 minutes that I wrote, and I think we're right at 45 minutes from the time we started. At this time, I would like to have the 5 presenters come back up here and stand. Art, the presenters, and we're going to open it up to the press. I understand we have 2 or 3 canned questions that we planted with reporters. So I don't know if we have the planned answers or not, but I would direct your questions at any of these people here.
I'll get the answer.
Okay, these are our presenters we've asked to be available for the press, so if you'll raise your hand, I'll call on in and tell me who you want me to hand the mic to, please. Is there any questions at all? I know it's cold. Okay. Allison Gatland, please.
She's asking, is there any way that the state can be a partner in this project? And I can tell you right now that the state budget is very much in flux right now. There's more questions than there are answers, and it looks like we're in a projected deficit this year. So this is probably not our best year but it is a good year to be talking about it. And it is a good year that we can at least get our foot in the door and make the state aware of this project. So we'll be doing our best to get it stand in the line that's going to exist in the state budget.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much, Tom.
What happens during this 3 years ahead?
Who's the Janice? Who's the directed to?
That would be Art or JB.
So the 3 years ahead is really just forging forward with the finishing up the building, the museum, finishing up the museum, making contacts, making the public aware, trying to get the word out for what we're trying to create. It's very intentional, the design of the building. If you look at how it's very unique, we want to make sure that it's globally recognized as an inspiration point, as a means of inspiring the next generation, that when people see it, it's like when you see the Gehry, you know what that is. And so it's really striving forward to try and help communication with the community and understand all the universities out there and school systems, that this is a communication center and we're here to support everybody.
Okay, one brief follow-up. $250,000 down. Sounds like you got about $1 million to go.
For finishing the skin. Repeat the question. So he was asking, we've got some money into the program so far and about $1 million to go. It's actually for just finishing the skin, roof, and hangar door, we're $1 million shy. So we have funds in the bank already, but we're about $1 million shy just to skin it. The entire building phases for what we're building out, it continues on from this to the windbreak sunshade, to other additional STEM education buildings, to additional areas for the museum itself. So overall, it's multi-millions of dollars because it's an ongoing effort. It's ongoing as far as outreach and creating different centers. Eventually, we want like a lecture hall, area. We're building out the Poncho Barns, a mock-up of the bar, which is going to be basically like a little food court area. To me, it's like Carnegie had the libraries, which they spread education across the country, which was a beautiful thing. And as society moved on, all of a sudden it was Barnes & Noble, right? And so if you think about it, Barnes & Noble, what they brought was they had a Starbucks, and people could come gather and meet and greet and communicate and hang out together. And if they liked the book they saw, they would buy the book. We want this to not just be a museum. We want it to be the Barnes & Noble's, the communication center where people can gather. There'll be meeting areas. There'll be sandwich areas. There'll be means for people to get together and talk about ideas. My parents were teachers. They taught biology, chemistry, and physics. And so I grew up with the inspiration of what could be, learning from and being inspired by everything out there. So it's really trying to grow our communication.
Thank you, Art. Is there any other questions, please, from the press? Here's Allison again. Thank you.
For either Kathy or Drew, I was hoping you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on how AV Edge might figure into this project. It seems like it's not necessarily something people would think of immediately for your organization.
Thank you, Allison. Here's Drew. Thank you.
So this project touches on several different aspects of what AV Edge works on. I touched a little bit on the tourism side. That's something we work with in the community. When people come and visit the community to see this great museum and our other aerospace venues, they're staying in our hotels, they're eating in our restaurants, they're creating economic activity. In addition, one of our key goals is workforce development. And as some of the other speakers touched on that, inspiring the next generation of aerospace engineers and STEM workers. By what we see that kids who grow up here get inspired here, and as George was talking about, work here in these fields, they stay here long term, and they help make these incredible leaps and bounds in our scientific understanding and creating those jobs.
So, follow-up question. How do you think that you can help with the efforts to get the museum going?
Okay, so like Rex is talking about, we're looking for lifetime members. For $1,000, you can be a lifetime member. So Rex has figured out how many lifetime members it would take to get up to that $1 million mark. So AV Edge has many of the corporations and the businesses and everything already in the Antelope Valley looking to bring economic growth. So we're hoping to bring them in, that lifetime friendship, knowing that that's going to help their business grow because it's going to create economic development all around this project, as well as other things needed to build to bring people out here.
Real quick, I want to coattail on that a little bit. Something I didn't mention earlier with this wind and the cold, I shut down. Last year, keep in mind the museum is behind a security fence, a security gate. The general public cannot visit the museum and hasn't for many years. We have an annex out in Palmdale, Blackbird Air Park, which is only open at the time 2 days a week. Now it's 3. But last year alone, we had 50,000 visitors. Imagine if we were open to the public, what this place would see every year. 50,000 in 1 year, and we're behind a fence. So yes, once this place opens, I'm estimating easily 100,000 the first year alone, and possibly a lot more. There's a tremendous amount of interest in what we do here in this museum. Eventually, when this is up and running, what you will not see is you will not see a museum of dead static airplanes. We want everything to be interactive. We want it to be exciting. We want kids to be excited about coming here and doing things.